All right. So this is a follow-up meeting to the one that we had last week on looking at a legislative proposal on the council's agendas, priorities, sorry, for the legislative session. Kim and Patrick were gracious enough to take a initial stab at the presentation, and we greatly appreciate that. I don't know if everyone saw my emails, but we did postpone doing a presentation until January because there was some legislators who committed that are now not reelected. And so because of all of that, we wanted to make sure we could get as many people there as possible. Some already had conflicts. We were going to try to get it done before session started, but it was just too tight of a window. So I sent out invites to Health and Human Service Committee for the January meeting. So I did get some feedback so far that people have accepted that. So now this proposal that we're working on now is going to be preparation for that. So we can take what we have and what we go over today to the larger council at our meeting next week so that everyone can kind of weigh in because we want to make sure that the priorities that were in the survey are actually everybody's priorities. And there are some nuances around all of this as well, with some studies that are coming out and additional information that will be coming out. And obviously, we have a new administration federally, so that's going to probably impact, some things as well as we come into this session. So Kim, are you able to share the slides? Let me just make sure before I can make sure that all participants can share.
No,
So
I need permission to share.
do you have it now?
Yes, and I see
Okay.
that Patrick is joining us.
Yes.
All right, and I apologize if you can hear noise in the background. I happen to be out in a program today, and they're just returning from getting ready to go home. Patrick and Patrick, please feel free to jump in alongside me.
Can you make it a little bigger? I apologize for interrupting.
No, not at all.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you letting me know that you need to see it better. Let me do that for you. I will do a slideshow presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Okay, is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let me just tell you what we did so that you understand how we got to this presentation. Tara was gracious enough to feed us some background information in terms of a previous presentation that was done that had captured all the shift from the legislation and how it moved from social services to OPM, and also the legislation directly. And so we took a lot of that information to provide the background. Tara also provided us the results of the recent survey that just went out, and I believe there were 11 respondents. So we used the information from those 11 respondents. And we do have more questions than answers. So Patrick and I are probably going to pose some questions to all of you for some feedback. This is a draft. It is nowhere are we going to say this is complete. So we are looking for some feedback. And you'll notice it's not even in a pretty format. Okay. All right. So the initial slide is just to provide some basic background of the council, the mission, and the main goals. This comes directly from the legislation. I'm going to pause if anyone has anything to add or revise for any slides. just let me know what, just pipe up or put something in the chat.
I'll be interested to see later in the presentation, or maybe it's on the next slide, Kim. And maybe it's not germane, but I mean, this is a shift in my mind from when I had first been appointed to the council, however many years ago, where we were solely focused on those being served on the waiver. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lynn, but in my mind, this is a shift. And maybe the new legislators, like, you know, they won't, that's not really important to them. But I only think to me, this was a big, like, eye opener.
Yeah, actually, I don't recall it that way, Jim. No, I think that we
Okay.
have certainly talked a lot about the waiver, but I don't ever recall in my time that we were solely focused on the waiver. I think
Okay.
it's always been a big issue for sure, but that's
Okay.
I see Lois, our historian, on there too, who can
Yeah.
who can
I
weigh
mean,
in.
Lois, I didn't see you.
if I might speak to that, the whole purpose of this waiver was to service those from sort of the mid to the high end of the spectrum. Those folks, those adults, and this was adults that we focused on when we were able to get this legislation through. These were people, this is the part of the spectrum that has never had services in place. Adult services in place. This is the population that really has nowhere else to go. And the sad reality is that nothing much has changed. We have very low numbers that are being serviced in this state. The vast majority of folks who have ASD without another developmental disability there's absolutely nowhere else for them to go. So to see that we've now expanded this blows my mind, and I have to state that because the other populations that we're talking about, although they have waiting lists, certainly for services, have some place else to go. And I feel the legislature needs to keep this in mind. They need to be aware of it. They need to work on this. We are one of the few states in this region of the country that this is true.
Okay. I didn't mean to derail us, Kim, but
No.
with my
No,
with
it's
my
not really, yeah.
statement, but you can see and hear there was very strong opinions about this.
Yeah.
So I'll let you continue. I wanted to open that up from the get-go. So thank you.
Actually I appreciate that actually,
Okay.
because I want to honor our voices. So if there's something not represented that we want represented on the slides, that's why we're doing this.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, sorry.
No,
Go ahead.
that's fine. That's fine. So maybe my slides answer your question, Gemma, but let's keep that in mind, as we go through this.
Great.
So then the next slide just simply shows the membership. And that again comes right from the new legislation, the newer legislation.
Maybe that's a pie chart or it's less words. I just feel like that could be a quick get would be something like I said, a pie chart just to give it a visual.
Sure, something visual. Got it.
Yeah.
And then this, it can be seen as a little bit redundant from the first slide. So we can talk about, does it need to be here or is it important to reiterate? Or maybe this is a slide where we can speak a little more to what you're talking about in terms of the shift. We do get a lot more into really the expanded agenda and really talking a lot more around, again, the purpose of the new shift, which is moving from the Department of Social Services to OPM really looking at that cross-agency coordination and the holistic services for the ASD spectrum. And then the service categories being not just adult services, but also including early intervention and youth and adults. So between the last two slides, we may want to make some revisions based on what I'm hearing. This last slide is where Patrick and I had the most questions because this is what came from the survey. And so we had 11 people respond to the survey out of, is it 24, 25, Tara?
That's correct.
So approximately half the people responded. And so the first thing that Patrick and I don't want to speak for my colleague, but I'm probably going to let Patrick jump in at some point here to say we don't want to overrepresent what people really want to say are the priorities. But really the major bullets are what came from the survey. The sub bullets are what we were trying to capture from various conversations that occurred during our meetings. So I think we really need to determine as a group, ultimately, when we present to legislators, what are our asks? What do we really want to bring their attention to? And really be sure that we're being clear about that. So this needs a lot of attention, in my opinion. Patrick, did you want to add anything to this?
No, I think that's true. I think being, new members to this group, and being asked to present some of this data and certainly being asked to outline the priorities of this group. One of the thoughts that I had is, this is, a pretty limited sample of voices at the potential table. And, I'm concerned that, it may not be representative of what people who are receiving the services, the people that are providing the services, the families that are involved in receiving these services would say. And so, I was challenged by how do we frame this information, that it's coming from our group, of course, but how accurate is it and how representative is it? And so I was struggling a little bit with that. And that followed our discussion from the last meeting where we took a look at those survey results from, I believe it was from Pennsylvania. And so, that's what Kim and I kind of discussed quite a bit about, what is our ask and how is it related to this potentially small sample of information that we have that's kind of driving our priorities? And is there a need to get information from a larger sample, a larger, more representative sample that could be more informative in identifying priorities going forward?
Patrick, oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Sorry, Jim, I was going to say, from a process standpoint, I hear absolutely what you're saying. And I believe if we bring this to the council next week, and, the council, while it's not representative of every, certainly, provider group and, level within the autism world, I think starting there and really strongly encouraging attendance at that meeting so that, because then at least you're broadening, right? It was a smaller group, 11 people, and then there was a subset that met last week, and then you're opening it, like we just continue to open it up. And I think I was really glad that Yana was able to participate because we did get the advocate's voice. But I think if we get good participation at our meeting, I think we will, a lot of the folks will have something maybe counter to say, which is what we want, right? Because we want to make sure that we're casting the net as broadly as we can. So, and moving the meeting to January gives us a little more time to even take it a step further, I think, which is what you are at least raising the question. Do we need to go beyond the folks who will be around the table?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that was really the point, that being new to the committee, being new to somewhat of this process, do we have all of the information that we need to really make informed decisions about targeting priorities and advocating strongly for those priorities?
I personally feel that you need a much broader broader view. And I, excuse me if I, should know this and I don't know this, but I was sort of late and unable to attend the last meeting. But how have we gotten to this, from servicing a certain population of people on the spectrum to a much wider place? How have we gotten there?
So-
How did this happen?
Lois, I can,
Legislation.
that was in legislation when
Yeah.
it was transferred to OPM. What they presented at the beginning of this, looking at statewide coordination across agencies and services, that was in the legislation when it was moved to OPM.
Must have missed my attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd be interested, Tara, so you're saying 11 people of the council responded, and this was where we landed. I'd be interested if, number one, next week we can plug this into maybe a poll and we set aside 10 minutes. Let's get everyone to vote. Boom, boom, boom. Try and get some additional responses as one other, way to source it. But to Patrick's point, I mean, in terms of sourcing respondents, I'm looking at you, Christine. I mean, you have a data set, because I know you run a support program in out of your town in the greater Watertown area. Patrick, is that kind of what you're thinking? Like an open poll of families affected by autism? My concern would be, and Christine, you're just in my Zoom screen, so I'm looking at you. But like your families that you serve, I mean, I don't know the age group, the level of need. Like Patrick, I don't know how we slice that or how we source a larger, broader list. I mean, Lynn, it could be your patients that you see. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
how are we going to source this?
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
think the risk with that is limiting, my patients or the people we serve, although they're across the spectrum, clearly, we tend to see the most impacted. So to
Right.
Lois's point, if you ask the families we serve, you're going to get one answer. But by the same token, if you ask, a group of individuals with autism who are employed or, working in like some of the folks who work here who are employed, you'll get a different group. So it would have to be a cross representation or it's going to be a misrepresentation, right?
100%. Yeah.
I think the way you do this is you get this out to support groups like ASRC and the ARCs. If indeed this is supposed to now be across the spectrum of autism, then you have to look at that spectrum and you get it out to families through their organizations. I mean, that's really the only way I know of getting it out.
And to reach the population that you're talking about, Lois, which is a population I'm also concerned about, you may not be able to necessarily find them very easily because those are often the individuals and families that aren't necessarily being serviced directly in any one group.
Well, you could find a large part of that group through our organization.
Yes, probably. Probably. You may have to go to different corners, to look for them. And I'm wondering if that may be, in fact, a direct ask, because I'm also wondering if we want to do it and do it well, if we actually need money to outsource to a program evaluation group that knows how to conduct surveys, knows how to find individuals, and can actually put resources behind conducting an actual research survey to find out what the needs are and to find out, are these groups in, families, because I work with families that don't even know what resources to go find and don't even know about your group, Lois, and I have to refer them to your group. So I'm concerned that there are going to be pockets of people that we have to actually go find. And so if we could ask for money from legislators to actually conduct appropriate survey, we might get better results.
I think
given the
that's a great
range.
idea. I think that's a great idea. And it's never really been done. You know,
So-
That was gonna be one of
Yeah.
my questions. Has this been done
never,
before?
it's
Right.
never
Not
been,
that I'm aware of, yeah.
Okay.
So
no,
that's, so
we've
that
never been
adds some
able to get
urgency.
the funding to do it. We've never been able to. So if that could happen, I think it would be great. And I think there are lots of ways then to find these folks.
And Tara, would you be able to, just for the sake of having an understanding of how much it costs to run such a survey, would you be able to figure that approximate amount for us?
Yes, so I already have reached out. So when I was in Pennsylvania, we did a statewide survey. It's now been done and replicated a couple times. And it was, an autism needs assessment basically that was sent out. It's been translated to multiple languages. And so when I was at the Bureau of Autism Services in Pennsylvania, we used that to inform our waiver services. And so that was one of my suggestions. And one thing that I'm working on in my role is, as an ask to, get the survey conducted. So it was completed by AJ Drexel in the Philadelphia area. And so I'm friends with the researcher, so I reached out to them. So they could do that for about $150,000 is what it would be to do a full statewide needs assessment and to replicate that survey here in Connecticut.
That would be great. That would
And
be.
I do have from them a one pager that kind of outlines what that would look like and the overall cost. So that is something that can look at potentially sharing with everyone. Because in my, taking on this role and looking for, data, it's I haven't really been able to find it to say, distinctly that this is the needs of the people here in Connecticut.
Mhm.
And specifically the needs of the people who are on the wait list for services, whether from DDS or DSS.
Mhm.
Melissa, go ahead.
Yeah, so actually think the timing of this is good right now because I actually wanted to ask today, and I know we don't have a lot of people, but for folks who are working with, with the autism population, one thing for me that is striking that has come up in the last 2 weeks that I have been fielding in my groups, in my individual sessions, and have also gotten phone calls about outside, outside of normal business hours, is Melissa, am I going to lose my benefits? Am I going to lose my status is the waiver going to go away? Like, so some folks this is where their mindset is right now. And I was just curious to hear if that had come up for anyone else. And because I heard it in such, I mean, I'd have to really specifically look and see how many people said it to me, but I mean, it was an overwhelming amount of the folks I see. Is that something that legislators should be aware of, that now some folks are feeling very anxious about their status right now? Just curious to hear other folks' feedback on that.
Well, we've been hearing a lot of it. I know we've been getting calls from families who are concerned. And in some of our adult groups, individuals have expressed anxiety around the loss of services. So that's, all I can report. I've gotten a few, actually, I still get, even though I'm retired, I still get calls from families, and I've gotten some calls that of people that are really panicked. They're very concerned. And that has to do with with the changeover in Washington. And I think, but yeah, sorry to be long-winded.
Thank you, Lois. I was just curious what if anyone else had experienced that. I mean, I experienced it at a very significant level. So I was just curious if others had had that experience as well.
Thanks for joining, Lynn.
Thank you.
So, and Melissa, that does not surprise me. I have not heard that yet, but I am anticipating that that will be a concern that gets risen, has crossed my own mind,
Yeah.
as an individual and as a parent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not shocked that you have heard that. And that may be something else that we may need to think about. And, I mean, I think that's a legitimate worry to put out.
Yep.
The other thing that in thinking this through and talking about it, and Tara, I may lean on you because you may possibly have more information about this, is I am aware that OPM has also been charged with looking at the eligibility determination of intellectual disability. And, you know, given the possible direction that they may be going, and this is going to have a significant impact on autism spectrum disorder as well. And we may want to be sure that we have a voice at the table regarding where this goes. And I am aware that they have a report that's due to the legislators by January 1st. And to be sure that we are present, we have an opportunity to review the report and to react to it would probably be something else that we want to have an opportunity to be part of. Tara, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just don't know if you want to add anything that I'm.
Yep, that's fine. So, this is one that I've been overseeing, the study. I reported on that earlier to the, last year when we started. So we will have a final draft ready by that January 1st deadline. Some council members were able to participate in the stakeholder group, providing feedback on the draft report and recommendations. So when the final report is approved and sent to legislators, I planned to send to the council at large as well. So everyone would receive, a copy of that report. I think that we would I think it would be in the best interest of the council to meet prior to the January 15th meeting and have, or not, but maybe we put it on the agenda to talk to legislators about our view or the collective group's view on the outcome of that.
It's a good idea.
Because if IQ, specifically it's around eliminating IQ in the definition of intellectual disability. So if we were to eliminate IQ and adopt a developmental disability definition that is inclusive of intellectual disability, then that would expand eligibility in the DDS waivers, and then would also impact the autism waiver as it's really, connected to IQ as well. So I think that, again, there are some proposals for new definitions in the report and, looking at workflows and how eligibility would potentially change if that definition were to change. So I think that as a council, everyone should be reading that, and then in the January 15th, we should have an overall opinion on it.
Could I ask you something, Tara? Do you have any idea if there's any place in the country where they're doing this, where they have a waiver based on IQ and they have a developmental disabilities agency that is open to all with DD?
That's a complicated question, Lois.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
to
sorry.
simply, yes. M- it it the overall, the way that that works is different. So some states have changed from a fee for service to a managed care approach in their waivers. And so that expanded eligibility, for example, based more on need versus just, diagnosis alone and IQ. But again, most of the states that have gone through this process have taken a multiple year approach at looking at how to restructure service delivery in their state. Some states have just eliminated IQ and expanded eligibility within other waivers. But if we were to do that in Connecticut, if we were just to say, okay, we're no longer using IQ, that would just increase, if there's no budget behind that, that would just increase the wait list.
Makes-
And
yeah.
so, there needs to be some, strategic planning around how we do that.
Yeah.
If they're going to do that at all. So this report's not making the recommendation to change the definitions. It's making the recommendation on if a definition were to change, what are some definitions that would be, what would that look like? And, was also charged to look at what are best practices in other states. So all of that information, will be coming out in that final draft of the report.
My concern or fear is that, that were to happen, that we would go to, we would drop the IQ and we would just increase the waiver. And we would be without, so, basically the few that are being serviced now would, would not be serviced. I think we have to be very concerned about that. We've worked too hard for too long to make this waiver happen.
So
We-
the only thing that I can, say is that once that final draft is approved and that report comes out, I will be happy to email it to the council, and then, everyone will receive a copy of that, and then we, you guys can let me know if you want a ad hoc meeting to discuss prior to the presentation to legislators on the 15th. I'd be happy to organize that for you.
Yeah, I think that would be important.
I agree.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm wondering if even before that, are there people at OPM that are heavily involved in this, and should we be talking to anybody up there now?
That would be me.
Okay.
I'm,
Okay, well, we've
I'm,
already done that.
I'm the person at OPM who's heavily involved in this. So, like I said, that I can't give out any draft information. So the best I can do is make sure you all receive a copy when the final draft is approved.
Per the legislation.
So, and I'd be happy to organize that meeting if we want to get it on everybody's schedules now to
Yeah.
say, hey, this is coming out. We know the council's going to want to have an opinion on our presentation to legislators. So I'd be happy to look at some January dates prior to
Yeah, probably the week of the
our
6th.
larger meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So as far as the slide deck and the next meeting, what takeaways do you currently have for me and Patrick to be able to finesse the slide deck? What recommendations, what next steps should we take?
I'd like to see like a goal stated up front. What the goal of the meeting is, is there gonna be an ask at the end of it? Is it just to inform? We appreciate everyone's busy and they're making time, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to see that up front.
Do we know if we're gonna?
We don't.
Okay.
So if you can email out or give access to even a PDF of it, I'd like to, because I do have to drop, I have school pickup. I would like to look at it a little bit further,
Yeah.
or if it's in Word or whatever,
It's in
just so I can track
PowerPoint.
changes. Okay,
Yeah, I can give it to Tara and
okay,
Tara, would you mind sharing it?
Yep,
And then
that's fine.
okay.
any and all feedback. But I think it would be important for us to decide, is this an informational?
Yes.
Do we have an ask? Is it both?
Right.
I
Yeah.
think we have to make that determination.
And
Yeah.
Kim, I think that this is in my thought process is that this would be a big portion of our meeting and part of our discussion on next week at our full council meeting. If you guys would like to see a poll put together, like these were the big areas and these are some of the subcategories, like I can work on that too to so that we can get some feedback in real time from the council while everybody's there and participating in the meeting so that we're not sending it out, extra and trying to get that feedback.
Great.
Do we have a sense of any of those? And maybe Lynn will know, but do we have anyone that's tracking any upcoming bills?
We
I mean, I
talked
can,
about having a legislative ad hoc
okay,
group that would kind of send out and highlight anything that's coming
okay,
through bills that are coming out that may be related to autism.
okay,
So we did talk about that. I know some other councils do like a, weekly during legislative session, they may do like a
yeah,
weekly or bi-weekly, meeting to discuss, what's happening in the legislative session, but that's up to, all of you,
yeah.
just how involved people want to be. And, we would need people to volunteer to help do that work.
Maybe I'll kick that off. I've done it before for my own personal, so it would be a little expansive. I'm not sure I would be able to collect all the terminology, but obviously starting at, the different agencies that we know like are within the purview for this population. But all right, Tara, when I connect with you tomorrow, we can chat further. I do have to drop. Thank you
Okay.
all for this. This is a great work, Kim and Patrick. Thank you again. Okay, bye.
Bye. So it sounds like next steps, then we can maybe run through this again with the larger council, and I'll work on putting maybe another survey together that we can do live in person. And I can send that to you guys to make sure I'm capturing everything in advance, to make sure I captured everything that was on your slide. Would you mind sending me then the updated version of your slide deck, and I can use that as a jumping off point?
Great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then people can also provide feedback on the slides.
Yep. Perfect.
Great.
Okay. Anything else for today then, or? All right. Sounds good. Patrick and Kim, thanks again. Appreciate all of your work on this so far.
Thank you.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.